All right, good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live Fuel show. So I am bringing on a new guest co-host, as I always am. And actually, for the regular listeners, when you hear this show air, go back and listen to the last show I aired in 2024. It was titled Mold Problems and HVAC Solutions with Brandon Faust. The reason why I'm throwing that out there is because the gentleman I'm going to introduce you today, we're going to return on this subject of toxicity in our homes and our businesses because it is increasing nowadays. And for those of you who forget or might be newer listeners of the show, one of the biggest industries I consult into is the heating, air conditioning, and ventilation industry. Everybody wants warm air in the winter and cold air in the summer, and it's pretty much always going to be needed. So, at least in the first world country of the United States of America. That being said, hint, hint, building quality has improved, but we might second guess that with today's discussion. So the gentleman I'm bringing on today, he's the CEO of Hygia Living Corp. So I like the little spin on hygiene, Hygia. Maybe he could explain more on that. But I have a lot of fun as a sales and marketing professional and consulting I do because I love spinning brands. And his brand is Superstratum. I want to have fun with that. But he's got a patent pending process to remove these, again, some people call them mycotoxins. I've actually heard 3 different pronunciations now just in the past year. I don't care how you want to go about it. It's in our homes, whether you like it or not. It might be in stronger doses, whether you like it or not. I'm not here to fearmonger. We're here to talk science. We're here to talk validity of a problem. I can back it up myself. But this gentleman, he was a DJ, songwriter, just trying to love life. Lives in Nashville, Tennessee, back and forth to LA. And next thing you know, the guy gets some BRI, AKA building related illness issues. And that might just mess up your life a little bit, not just from a brain health standpoint, physical attribute standpoint. I've heard of this messing with people's vocal cords, all kinds of things. So probably not a happy character. So we're going to have some fun today. So get to know this gentleman. Without further ado, Seth Jones, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's
All
great
right,
to be
man.
here. It's a great intro.
Well, because I actually know most of what you're talking about. Talk about maybe
Yeah.
not. I'm not here to push product, right? I know we got a product, and I'll screen share because I would love throwing some solids. Because again, as a sales and marketing guy, I'm like, I've never taken on a paid advertisers since I launched this show back in 16, and we'll hit 500 shows finally this year. I've said that in years prior, but then I made the mistake of trying to write a book. And being a songwriter and a music guy, it's like there's only so many irons you can throw into the fire and try and get all to come to the finish line. So some take longer than others. So yeah, and I'm sure your finish lines got moved a little if you pick up a little bit of BRI related encounters. So yeah,
Absolutely.
let's dig right into that because on your background, and I've seen different numbers, but I noticed on your background information you threw out there some big numbers, right? 66 million homes, 170 million people. Is that still current statistics?
Yeah, those are the most current statistics actually. And yeah, it's a good question. Is this problem getting better? Is it getting worse?
Yeah,
How do you
you picked up on my
quantify?
hint.
Yeah, how do you quantify this? Those numbers come, or the logic from those numbers come from government data.
Okay.
And this study was a number of years ago, but I think it's based on I don't think anyone would contest that these numbers still sound the same. But what the government said at that time was that about 50%, about 47% of homes, and I think 48% of office buildings in the US had ongoing water damage issues.
Yes.
And there's other factors and or facts out there. Some people throw around numbers like 70% of buildings have mold. Who knows, right? But what we know is that there's not only a large number of homes that have mold in them, but we know there's a large number of homes that have ongoing water damage issues.
Yeah.
And those are the conditions that create not just mold, but they can create mycotoxin production within a home. You look at, I think it's 2.6 individuals per household in the United States, over nearly 67 million homes, and you get a gigantic number, like 170 million people who are living in some home where the basement flooded or the HVAC line backed up or the faucet overflowed and created a a
Or
flood under
you're in a
your
high
home.
moisture state like
There,
Florida and
there you go.
Texas, the Gulf states, right? You have a much higher moisture ratio in the air. That can trigger growth in a home.
Exactly. And there's so many ways that moisture can get into a home, and ways that it can get in and hide for a long period of time. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at a group of people that are that large, 170 million people, basically we're all getting exposed somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Because we're
yeah.
walking into a building, we're going to school somewhere, we're going to an office.
You'll appreciate this. I represent a factory up in Vermont, made in the USA company, all about indoor air quality, right? UV lamp technology, ionization technology to improve filtration, high end MERV 11, MERV 13 class filters, all that. It's
Yep.
all in my house. So it's been in my last house. I put it in my parents' house. I put it in my in-laws' house. I know it works. It's been proven for decades. It's in that industry. They call it the ASHRAE guidelines, ASHRAE, and chapter 62. Because I've trained during COVID, I was training contractors on the methodologies and the protocols while the factories were just being inundated by people just buying them out of the IQ products. So the funny thing is this: so yes, it's meant to be more preventative, but also reactive, right? To benefit that. But to your point, no matter how much tech I put into the house, it could it manage it and mitigate it if it becomes airborne? Sure. But if you've not addressed a water damage issue, hint hint, me and this house that popped in about a year and a half ago, the house was fine. And then 2 years ago, we were getting a ton of rain. I thought no big deal. I ripped out the whole back deck. You'll love this. Build a nice, fancy hardscape patio, right? I'm going to bulletproof this. I'm never going to deal with rotting wood again, blah, blah, blah. Get the wife the hot tub because we're skiers. And then that heavy rains are just slamming for like weeks. And I never had a water problem in this house. The prior owners, we've only been here 3.5 years. And then I just go down to the basement the one day to hang up antique skis on the wall that we had our friends sign at our ski wedding. We did a ski wedding years back. Actually, but we just had our 5-year wedding anniversary on St. Patrick's Day. So
Right.
I'm hanging the skis up and I drop a screw and I look down. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I see white fuzz growing on my baseboard molding where the basement's finished. So where the wall hit. And I have whoever finished this basement, they got one of these giant like tube dehumidification chambers like in the corner. So somebody bought in on these, these basement management systems and put it in. I didn't pay for it. Somebody else did. I've never have to turn the thing on, but it gets loud. But there was no record of any water damage. And long story short, there was a crack in the back foundation that I didn't know about. It was hidden behind the circuit breaker panel in the mechanical room in the basement. But when I hardscaped the whole back of the house, it created a slight pinch point where so much water was going over the railroad, over the rain spouts, it couldn't manage the rain. Hit the hardscaping, and without a rotting deck for it just to fall through and pitch away, the pitch was just off enough to send a little bit back towards the foundation of the house, and water will find a crack. And it worked its way through that, and it landed in there, and then it made it into that wall. So long story short, I thought I had a fine home. Now, granted, I don't think I was affected like you. We could talk more about this, right? Because I want to hear more of your backstory here. I'm just giving you some precedent. I have experience with this, right? And I went through and did all the killing and the death stuff and did some testing. I did samplings. So it was minimal. Now, granted, if I ever opened another wall up, I don't know, right? You can, because even that last show I did in December, you open walls up, you don't know what you're releasing, right? And he hinted at that there's ways to properly not just mitigate, but clean and remove. So I was lucked out. We've had no issues.
Right.
Obviously sealed the cracks, fixed all that, did more testing. Good. Even my wife's oldest friend's husband used to have a mold remediation company. So he's sharing tips. He's done all of this stuff. So I kind of lucked out. Not everybody knows what I know. And
Yeah.
now what you know. Now, how did you find out? Was this an apartment you had or a lease you had, or how did you get handled? Because I almost fell into that, but luckily I knew how to jump on top of this stuff right away. So,
Yeah. Well, when I was living in Los Angeles, I was staying in a home, and I had already started the company and a couple of business partners, and so we had the startup house. And LA is very, very bad, for sick buildings and thus building related illness because it doesn't rain very often there, but when it does, everything leaks.
Yeah.
And so all the buildings get, water and then that water dries and that puts that fungus through the process of releasing toxins. And so those buildings get very toxic and it's also very dusty. So that was the state of the house I was in. I had issues. I had a lot of anxiety issues and different things. My partner at the time got extremely sick, both
Mm.
mentally ill and her physical body, going to doctors. And there were other people who came through that house and lived. It was a big property and it had a couple different as apartment. And one girl who lived there wound up going to rehab. There was a couple other guys who just had terrible gut issues and depression and different things.
And
And
nobody
everybody
nobody
kind of
was realizing it was the property that was triggering a lot of
yeah,
this.
yeah, there would have been no way you would have ever pinned it together.
Mm.
Um, but that is as often is the case in these situations where, we have this massive epidemic of chronic illness that we're all looking at collectively, right?
Mhm.
There's new administration that's in that ran on this, right? That we're sicker than we've ever been, and we continue to get sicker. What is causing that? And there's no one thing that's causing that.
Oh, I
There's
agree.
many things that are
There's
causing
many.
that, right?
Yeah.
But this is the largest mass exposure of toxins that we experience in today's world. And the problem is getting worse,
Mhm.
right? Because what you just explained is so common, right? I deal with something similar in my house and the water that comes down the hill and hits the water table and it leaks in. These are common things that everybody deals with in a house, and there are more catastrophic issues, and there are more, smaller issues. But
And let's
when,
pause on that real quick.
yeah,
There's some great built homes. Like this house was built in 1975. My old house was built in 1911. So I probably had all kinds of stuff going on that place. And I don't know, or maybe because of it and its older construction, it breathes better. Whereas as you keep
that's
advancing in
what it
newer
is.
technologies and newer construction, we're building them tighter and tighter. And that's my hint on HVAC. Oh, we have to hit these new energy efficiency goals, right? So the tighter we build that house, the tighter we wrap it, the better we insulate it. Yay, right? The temperatures are managed more properly. So you're not spending as much in cooling in the summer or heating in the winter. But one of the side effects is the home is tighter. Well, if it's
Yep.
tighter, and you're not finding ways to bring in clean, fresh air to off balance the old air, but also moisture management, humidification, dehumidification, all these components that people don't know that their HVAC contractors are professionals in for a reason, right? But then again, to your point, well, what if a crack develops? It can happen in a foundation. And if the water finds its way in there, you don't know you got a sleeping beast in your walls. And that's not the contractor's fault. It could have just, the home could have settled over time. It could have been a shift. Hell, California, since you said Cali, there's things like tremors and, mini earthquakes and stuff. There's all kinds of cracks that could come from that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and those are some of, there's much more common, like your HVAC unit is oversized. And so you have high relative humidity in the home, right? Or, crawl spaces. And the reason that it's so much worse today is you're exactly right, because we're building those tight buildings, but because contractors don't understand the consequences. HVAC companies don't understand the consequences that happens when mold grows. They don't know what happens when you bring those trusses and lay them out in the mud and then they get rained on and then
Mhm.
mold's growing on them and then they put the house under dry, those homes already have mold in them before the occupants even move in. And we see a lot of contractors, who essentially have mold remediators on as a subcontractor
They
because they
need
have
to.
to the
Yeah.
homes, before. And that is due to all of these factors. But the consequences, like I said, people don't understand that once these molds get into the homes and they get trapped inside these tight buildings, you're much worse off in a brand new home that has these mold issues than you are in a 1970s home or
Or my
even a
old
19,
1911. Yeah.
yeah, especially those because you can't keep those things heated and cool, right? Because all that air, so the moisture evaporates and moves out of the home more easily.
Mhm.
You can't, you don't trap that air in even if you do get growth inside the
Well,
home.
even states like upstate New York, for example, I go up there a lot on business. They're affected by obviously they call it the Great Lake effect, right? The Canadian cold blasts coming
Yep.
in, so they do a ton of over insulating up there because of the winters can get pretty aggressive. But then because it's such a wooded, beautiful state, like Pennsylvania as well, and people forget that even states like New Jersey, there is lots of green, lots of wooded areas there, but there's also farming, right? So all of that stuff becomes airborne. But back to your point, my 1911 house, I mean, I had the original antique rope pulley windows that my wife's great grandfather had built it. So it was the last thing we bought out of the estate. And it was small, it was simple, and we were happy. But I I put all my IAQ tech in, and I did sampling. We didn't have any. I don't know if anything could grow because the house was so, it breathed so well. It never had a chance things to get tight and trapped. It was constantly breathing. So, great. I probably spent more on heating and air conditioning because of
Right.
that. But the whole point was, okay, great. I was able to manage it, and
Yeah.
nothing bad had a chance to really kick in. So, but that's your point here too, is that it's cool that we're advancing on technology. So if we're going to advance one side of technology, we can't ignore these other basic fundamentals. They need to advance with it, right? So I don't think we're ever going to be able to remove, as we progress forward, maybe one day, I don't know, this chance of these entering into the home. I think it's almost inevitable, right? I mean, you'd have to be so OCD in the construction world, perfect everything. Like every product would have to show up wrapped in plastic or something, right? And prevent moisture, rain, snow. You see stuff being delivered to construction sites all the time. I have a ton of construction happening only 10 minutes down the road from me. I'm back in this ravine, so they can't build anymore back here. So I'm happy. I got woods all around me. Leave me alone. But right down the road, clearing out the fields, building these massive developments. I constantly see stuff getting dropped off. The weather's not perfect every day. Is all that stuff perfectly sealed, perfectly packaged right? And then you and I both know there's good builders, quote, and then there's not so good builders. And usually the price of the home is usually associated with that quality of a builder versus that entry level builder who's just kind of slapping it together. And I think we probably see more of this with those slap it together builders, but you get what you pay for, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that is generally true. And you're exactly right. The You can't prevent a mold spore from
They're
your
everywhere.
getting into your
It's a
home.
natural part of the environment.
You're right. But one of the things that we developed, it was actually the first product that started our company, is a unique polymer technology. This is our endurance coating now, and that can be sprayed onto wood, and it will prevent anything from growing. So we got builders, we encourage builders to apply this product when that wood gets to the job site because it can sit out there in the rain even for a few months, and it's not going to grow mold on it.
So that's like is it almost, you wouldn't call it a sealant, but the way it molecularly bonds to the material surfaces, it kind of creates a barrier, I guess.
Yeah, so it's not a sealant. It's permeable to water. You would not know, you can't feel it or see it. There is a UV indicator in it, so you can shine a black light on it and you can see where it's applied.
Hmm.
But it creates a breathable, dry film, and there are preservatives in that dry film. And so what it's actually doing is that film is what is resistant to the mold growth. So it's an invisible film that won't grow mold on it.
Hmm.
And it's extremely long lasting because of the polymer technology and the preservatives. And
So antimicrobial property is what you're saying, basically.
yes, it's
Okay.
got antimicrobials in it, and it will last for about 2 years on the exterior of your home, or like if you sprayed wood on a job site. But inside of a home, we say it lasts for 10 years, but we've had it's been in the market for even longer than 10 years. We've never had failures. It'll survive hundreds of wet and dry cycles. So it's a very unique technology, when you're talking about, preventing mold.
Hmm. And is there any, well, obviously, if you obviously filed a patent on that to protect that. So is it, obviously from testing everything else, is there any byproduct from that, right? Because like, it almost seems like everything's got some type of thing attached to it nowadays, right? But you're saying it is permeable to water, so that's good. So
Yeah.
it's a water-based product.
It is a water-based product.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason it's important to be permeable is because you'll see some of these what they call mold-resistant paints.
Okay.
and they're white paints, and you'll see them down in crawl spaces. Hopefully, you don't see them on wood because you're not supposed to paint structural wood like that. Because
Right.
when you seal up the structural wood, right, you'll trap moisture inside.
Mhm.
So this is a product that can be applied to structural wood, which makes it a fantastic solution for crawl spaces or areas where you can't manage the moisture. Because sometimes, like in my case, I've got a basement that would take serious excavation to fix the water issue.
Yeah, putting French
So
drains outside the foundation, stuff like that.
exactly,
Tens of thousands of
exactly.
dollars. Yeah.
And exactly. So this gives me a tool over multiple years to once I can get my space into a good state, get the mold out of it, then
Mhm.
I can spray this coating over all my insulation, over all the joist and the subfloor, and then I can put it into the HVAC system as well, right on the coils.
Nice.
So that's part of our treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one of the biggest things. Like the one company I used to also work with another manufacturer, but that company got sold, so those contracts changed. But the biggest thing I was always teaching people was you have to clean your HVAC coils. So let's say you don't have any of the problems you and I hit on anyway. Moisture is inevitable. I always try and teach the beginners out there. I'm like, an HVAC system, if you have modern central air, there's a coil in there that refrigerant is running through. So when your thermostat or your zoning system tells the equipment to call for heating or call for cooling, you're going to see this more in the spring and summer, right? You're calling for cooling. Well, that copper, gets super, super cold. And if there's moisture in the air, you got moisture collecting on the coil. The whole point of UV, which is again proper UVC spectrum. So I'm already telling you probably what you know. UVC spectrum light needs to be 254 nanometers. That is the measurement of death. Nothing can survive in that field. So if you don't have UV lights on, I like your idea of at least doing a pre-treatment on the coil, because what happens? You have a coil inside of a dark cabinet, aka your air handler or your furnace, stuck in the basement or stuck in the attic, and there's this constantly calling for cooling or heating depending on the year. And maybe you have a good filter, maybe you don't. Those particulates are passing by. There could be airborne spores from the spring season or from a farm field nearby. That stuff's coming into the system. So if you have a dark environment with moisture on the coil, you have the perfect, I call it the petri dish effect of creating life. The whole point of UV in there is that as long as UV is shining within 12 inches or less of that surface, and my system, I got 3 lamps in there, man. There's nothing surviving in there. But not everybody has done that. So if you could do, and actually it's funny because some of the manufacturers I'm hearing nowadays, especially with mini splits, the ductless heads you put on their walls, say if you don't have a ducted system, mini splits have really taken off over the past 15, 20 years. Those things are guaranteed to get growth. I mean, I've cleaned them. There's like all kinds of crap coming off that coil when you spray those things down. So now the manufacturers are trying to figure out how to put a factory coating on the coils as an antimicrobial benefit. And the ones I'm seeing on a couple of the manufacturers, it actually creates a bluish tinge on the coil within the head itself. So I'm wondering if there's some similar science connected somewhere. I don't know. I'm not involved in that.
Yeah.
But they're trying to find a way to prevent growth from happening on the surface of the coil if you don't have UV in there. Like they're trying to create that coating, which sounds like yours is a spray-on coating, basically. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
It is a coating for that exactly. And we do work with some manufacturers more in the air filtration media space,
yeah,
um, because this coating technology can even be used in fabric manufacturing,
nice.
because that invisible coating will really adhere to just about anything.
How does this impact? Because like that last episode I aired, we also hit on airborne toxins in general. So it's not just, let's say, mold growth or fungi. You also have to worry about things that are naturally occurring that we don't think about, but from man-made problems, right? So you have, hey, I got new carpet, or hey, I got new furniture. People don't realize those things, like the new car smell. That is actually not good. What people don't realize is that's off gassing of the raw materials made into that couch, made into that carpet, made into the dashboards and stuff like that. Like I tell people, I didn't know this years ago. A buddy of mine told me, he's like, when you buy a new car, and if it's in the middle of the summer, don't get in right away. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, if you have the ability to like drop those windows, or when you open the car, just like get the fresh air in there right away. Because if that dashboard and those seats have been superheating in the sun, he goes, the toxins that are being released out of that. I interviewed a great scientist on that, Dr. Anthony J. very good expert on genetics, and he wrote a great book about the impacts of plastics on us and hormonal imbalancing and everything else. It smart dude, smart dude. So I'm just wondering, is any of your products help impact stuff like that, right? Because there's so many toxins coming off. Because isn't there some crossover there as well?
Yeah. So what makes our products unique is there are a lot of chemicals that you can use to kill mold or bacteria or viruses, right?
Mm,
Disinfectants. Our products are specifically designed as oxidizers to destroy other chemical contaminants.
right. So
And
that's what I'm hitting on, the chemical
yeah,
contaminants. Right.
exactly. You're exactly right. So we do it a couple ways. Our cleaners are specifically designed for mycotoxins, and we've done research and white paper and a lot of work on that. We were the first chemical company to come out with a cleaner that could do that. The mold chemicals won't destroy that chemical mycotoxin.
Hmm.
But then there are other, as you're saying, there's other VOCs that are present in our environments. A lot of that new construction smell, off-gassing from paints and carpets and caulks and sealants and different things
Oh yeah, that's right.
are,
Caulk sealants, all that. Yeah, that
yep,
chemical
all
smell.
that. Yep, that new car smell, you're exactly right. Some of our customers use our deodor balm for this very reason. They can't even get into the new car because they're so chemically sensitive from other exposures, and there's a lot
Right.
of people like that.
Yeah.
So our gas product, our Superstratum deodor balm, is really designed for VOCs. That gas can penetrate, all the cushions and fabrics and things in a home. It can get into the crevices of a home, and
Let's
that's
screen
really
share
what you
here so
need
we
when
can
you're
get
going
some
after those
visuals. There we
VOCs.
go. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're hitting about the bomb right now, or are you still back on the cleaner?
Yeah, so the cleaner is for mycotoxins,
Okay.
and this is a part of our whole home system. We have these three phases with our three products. They can be used, of course, on their own, but we've combined them into a process that will decontaminate and detoxify an entire home.
Hmm.
So that second phase is the gas product. Those are the deodor bombs. They cover a different cubic footage, volumetric footage. So you put them in different places around the house. You seal up that home, and this gas will penetrate that envelope like we were talking about and get into
Gotcha.
all those places where you're cleaning and you're
Is this
fogging.
something you would throw into like a ductwork or into the HVAC system so it gets pushed throughout the house?
Yep.
Or
So you leave the HVAC system on, you turn the cool off,
yeah, blower
and you
motor
leave the
on. Yep.
fan on, and you put one of them by the register or by the return, excuse me.
Gotcha. Now, is this safe to use? Are you doing this, for example? Because I geek out and stuff like this. I got to understand the what's and whys. So,
Yeah.
now, is this obviously safe for humans, right? Because you're putting it into your home.
Yes.
Now, because it's called a bomb, right? Are you doing this? You said when you seal the home up, you don't want to be in the house when you're doing it because is there a, I guess, a threshold of max exposure, give it time to dissipate, then type of thing, or how potent is this stuff? So
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, in terms of potency, it is extremely potent. And the
okay,
gas phase of chlorine dioxide is poisonous. So you want to be out of
gotcha.
the home when you do this. It's an overnight process for phase two.
Okay.
Now, once it's done its work,
Oh, right
it
there, it's a chlorine
biodegrades.
dioxide gas.
It's chlorine dioxide, exactly.
Okay.
So you're only left with salt once it has dissipated. Now, some people can be sensitive to that chlorine dioxide, and they really have to give it a few days to air out in rarer cases.
Are you saying like airborne wise, or even mostly? I'm guessing it's not touch because what's this turned to salt? I
Well,
mean,
yeah, so the chlorine dioxide is a gas in this case.
mm,
So you let that gas, clear out of the home. You can air the home out. So that's the phase where it doesn't leave behind any toxic chemicals, but you have to be out of the home. The first phase with our cleaner, it's extremely safe. You don't need any PPE. You can fog it into the whole home.
that's the
And
water based component, right?
well, no, it's an HEHOCl cleaner. This is a special type of hypochlorous acid that will destroy a mycotoxin,
Hmm.
but it's still very, very safe. The product you're referring to is the coating product, and that's the endurance coating, which is the third phase.
Okay. I'm just screen sharing the cleaner quick because I saw you
Yep,
had a nice little label I could expand on. Check it out. So, oh yeah,
yep, that's
fully
a really good cleaner.
biodegradable. Yeah, cool. And that's now you're hinting at the coding. Yeah. So let me switch over to that. So there's your bomb there, and you saw these all broken out.
Yep,
Oh, here we go. Coding. Boom. Yeah. So let's understand this. So obviously, I totally get cleaning. I totally
yep,
get bombing. I've heard of bombs before. Now, this is what is this? This is that whole 10-year type of goal, right? That preventative coating, so to speak.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And you can use this outdoors too.
Yep. It's great outdoors. In fact, the chemist who developed it, he developed it. He worked at Sherwin-Williams for many, many years, in non-toxic craft paints and things. So
Hmm.
he had a very unique chemistry knowledge. He moved to the mountains up in Georgia and started getting algae growing on the side of his house. And so he developed a long-term mold-resistant coating that would stick to vinyl and give him, many years of performance.
I have
So,
seen this all the time. My buddy, I mentioned earlier, my wife's oldest friend's husband used to have a mold remediation company.
uh-huh.
Then he sold it. The next company he created was a house soft washing service, not power washing, but specific safe, not chemicals, but soaps to get that growth off the side of the house. Because depending, if you have a side of your house that's always hit by the sun, you don't
Yep.
see that. But if it's usually mostly shaded, and I had him come here when we bought this house, he came here, washed the whole house down. Like my white soffits under the roof lip were all had that like a little, maybe it was a spore or whatever on it. And
Yep.
then the last owner was only 5 years old, had built a metal pole barn. That's my man zone out there, put my gym out there. But the
Yeah.
one side of the barn had trees, dying trees that I eventually took down, but they kept it so shaded. Even on that brand new metal, there was a slight discoloration growing on it. It was hilarious. He just goes, spray, 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 waits like 10 seconds, and you see it just melting off the side of the metal. And then he rinsed it off and it was fine. But then almost 2 years later, it came back a little bit and I had to wash it again. And I was like, okay, until I took those dying trees down. Now there's plenty of sun hitting it and I don't get anything. So you're saying this stuff would actually prevent that from even starting.
Correct. Yep. Once you get
Interesting.
it clean, you just put a really light coat on it. And depending on, how much rain and weather and wear and tear it gets,
Sure.
it'll last 2 or 3 years,
Hmm.
on your home or on concrete or stone. It's great for stone. Um,
Yes, stucco, stuff like that. Yeah, I
yep.
used to live in Arizona, so there's plenty of stucco out there. I used to live in Colorado, plenty of stucco out there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very similar. California, it's very common in the construction style to have those stone exteriors or the stucco type of stuff. But yeah, trying to clean stucco, no, that's not fun.
Not fun.
And yes, I see a lot of growth on stucco. It's very interesting because I'm
Yeah,
always like,
especially on that
why is
shady
stucco?
side. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. But I see it
Yeah.
on wood too. I mean, but actually, my own father-in-law, he it's not the wood, whatever the new wood that lasts forever. It's like a plastic wood that they created. Trex is just a brand, but it's that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that one end of the deck, because it's got a big old ancient tree above it, he's got growth on it. And then you don't try and power wash that because depending on the nozzle you're using, it starts creating lines in the dirt. And then it just looks terrible because like he didn't clean it right. And I got to come over and help out with a scrub brush and clean it off. I'm like, yo, I'm just going to get him that for Christmas or something. Like, yo, just stop doing that. Clean it once and spray that on it.
There you go.
So now
That's how it
again,
works.
I think the bigger value here we're talking about today, again, I'm not here to sell products, but I like where you're going, is it's really the more higher value here is the indoor, how we started the show, right? Is I don't, okay, there's external aesthetics, which is funny, by the way. People do spend more time on the outside of their home than the inside of the home sometimes, right?
Yep.
So I see more value here because we care about health, right? That's the first tagline of the show. We feel your health, business, and lifestyle. And yeah, people souping up this and repainting that or landscaping. I always get a kick out of that because I used to do. So funny thing, you were in LA, so part of my career history was I used to be a hotshot wildland firefighter with the U.S. Forest Service. So all the big mountain fires, right? Everything that happened in California this past year, right? That was my old life.
Wow.
One of my adventures. And it's tragic when people lose their homes. But when you have people ignoring the state's guidance that came from fire professionals saying, do not plant things within 20, 30 feet of the side of your house. Why? Well, if you're in places like Northern California or even Southern California or Arizona, Nevada, or Colorado, you're putting burnable material close to the home. You're increasing the risk of if fire came into that space, it could catch other things on fire. but people love landscaping, so they ignore it. And then you see tragedy. And it just makes me laugh because it's like, okay, you could have just planted the stuff 20, 30 feet out further and you would have met the guideline and you possibly could have created that buffer zone. But back to my point on this, right? It's like, oh, well, I'd rather spend money on fancy trees and shrubbery and I don't know, lawn care than just getting a test done of, hey, how's the inside of the house look? Spend, I don't know, what's the average test? Hey, do you have stats on that? What's the average test nowadays for like an air quality test? Like a proper one, not one of those little kits you go to Home Depot and you open it up and just lay it on your counter. I'm like, no, 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 a proper test.
Yeah, well, I mean, a proper test is really an IEP.
Okay.
An environmentalist who does an inspection of the house, who looks at the building,
Hmm.
does microbial sampling, potentially does some even mycotoxin testing. And
Pretty
that can
awesome.
be anywhere from, $1,000 to $2,000
Yeah.
easily if you can find a good one.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not cheap.
It's not going to be cheap. But then again, okay, well, instead of buying, let's say, two new decorative trees this year, let's go for an air quality test. So when I go to sleep every single night, I'm not frying my brain cells and then developing other conditions, like you mentioned earlier, where
Right.
people start,
Well, yeah, and
depression and everything. So,
I would say
yeah.
too, a lot of times testing is not the most important place to start, right? Because
Hmm.
sometimes that $2,000 that you may have to spend if you wanted to go test and inspect your house, well, if you applied that to a duct cleaning, right? You know
Hmm.
you haven't gotten your ducts clean. You know that's an action step that you can take to
Ah, that's a good
to
point.
move
You're
your
right.
family,
You're
towards
right.
more health. So, and there's other things like that too. And that's really, really the mission of our company. What we want to encourage people to do is that some people who are sick chronically because of the environment that they live in, they don't really want to get better. They think that they're going to doctors and they're, getting their pharmaceuticals but they really don't want to get better because the things that will actually get them better are lifestyle changes. They're
Oh, now you're
fixing.
preaching to me, Seth. I got you 100% supported on that.
Yeah, man.
Everybody wants, you like my term, the pharmaceutical band-aid. It's a
It's
band-aid.
exactly,
It's not
yeah,
a cure.
it's exactly what it is. It's palliative care. But there's always a root cause, and that root cause is going to come from the environment. It's going to be something in the environment. The symptom is just a signal.
Hmm.
So what it takes in many cases to heal your environment, it can be great cost. And it's not always just money, right? Sometimes there's simple things you can do, but you're having to give up a lifestyle, you're having to give up a way of living, you're having to many people are hoarders. Many people, these things, it encroaches on our mental health when we live in these moldy, toxic buildings. It gets into our body, it
Hmm.
collapses our spiritual, support and identity
Well, your
and
body
people
basically has a wildfire going on inside of it at
all the
the
time.
hormonal level, the chemical
Yep.
level. I mean, your gut biome is tied to your brain. So if that's being disrupted, it's,
Yep.
you don't need to be a PhD nowadays. This is enough public knowledge to start hopefully waking people up. But that's kind of what you're hinting at here is that just do a duct cleaning. You don't even realize what's in that ductwork.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
1975 house. I've had it cleaned because nobody had any receipt records proving to me that these ducts were ever cleaned. I'm like, well, I'll take care of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we tell people too, the building cleaner fogging that. So much of the symptoms that we experience in buildings are a result of dust
Hmm.
because toxins and spores, that's all in the dust. So by using the right chemical that will break down toxins and by mechanically wiping and cleaning dust out of your home, you can you can improve, your health.
Well,
And those are just simple things that, people can do for not a lot of money. It just takes, moving into action to get it done.
I mean, look where I live. I mean, I have 3 acres of woods around. Well, some of it's my yard, but whatever. I'm in the woods, and my neighbor's woods touch my woods. So it's not like I have a huge property. My other neighbor's got 10. He's got 7. But the whole point here is I have pollen and all that, depending on the time of year. But also, every time I demo another project and remodel something else in this house, I'm ripping a ceiling down, or I've been in the attic redoing. I redid the ductwork last year. I changed out, upgraded the R value of the ductwork. Doesn't matter. You see mouse droppings, right? So no matter how, and I've had everything checked twice over the past 3 years, like closing things up, tightening things up. And the exterminator confirms, she's like, a regular field mouse, just coming in out of a field, out of the woods, whatever. She's like, they can compress their skeleton to the size of like a dime or a nickel, like the thick that, of that. So she's like, good job. But she's like, if they want to get out of the cold, they'll find their way in. And then what do they leave behind? Little droppings everywhere. So imagine if that gets pulled into your ductwork and then no one's ever cleaned that. Like it's just, you got years of dust, but also mouse droppings and other things. So like your simple request of, yeah, clean and prevent. And people don't think about that. Some people are very sensitive to things like that. I
Yeah.
mean, I grew up on a farm, so I feel like maybe I might have some kind of weird superpower that I've never had an allergy, but I was shoveling manure most of my childhood. So I think I was exposed to all kinds of things,
Yeah.
possibly in a good way, possibly in a bad way. But that was also an 1885 built farmhouse. So that probably breathed very, very well when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um,
And a lot of kids don't have that today. A lot of kids are growing up in really toxic environments. It's affecting their cognitive development, learning disabilities. These mycotoxins have been linked to childhood autism as well.
oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
it was a blessing to be able to grow up and have access to outside and clean air.
Mhm. Yeah, I try and be outside all the time. I'm a mountain biker. I'm a skier. I mean, I literally, that's why I bought this house. I'm like, ooh, I get to split wood for a workout. And people are like, you have fun doing it? I'm like, absolutely. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know, but I get outside whenever you can. I mean, I have a standing desk here, and I love my office and my studio, but it doesn't mean I want to stand here all night long. That's why I wear
Yeah.
blue light blocking glasses and stuff with all of my. I got 3 monitors here, so even there's that electronic pollution. So everybody talks about electronic pollution, but it's like, okay, even if I had none of this, everything you and I are talking about today still can exist with this and without this, because it's areas that you don't think about. You just take your air for granted. You take your HVAC for granted. Um, a lot of people think that, oh, I don't have AC. I have a friend of mine who lives up in New Hampshire. He's like, oh, we don't need AC up here. We just have a furnace. And I was like, and he goes, well, I don't have to worry about your growth on the coil and stuff. I was like, okay, so when you crack your windows and your system is at least still filtering the air and moving your air in your house, and you pull that New Hampshire pollen or New Hampshire airborne anything into the house, even though you're not running a cooling coil, you don't think it's in the ductwork, right? You don't think stuff still makes it past the filter. So you still have the contamination that you're talking about. Maybe not the same growth levels that we would see in a state like Florida or Texas or even Tennessee, or the Carolinas. I was just down after Hurricane Helene. I took a week off, went down there with my chainsaws and was doing a lot of volunteer work, trying to help out over in Saluda and regions like that, Asheville, just giving back, trying to help people. Oh my God, these homes, like people were struggling, waiting for insurance and everything else. There's tarps on the roof. I can't imagine how much right now, it's not even a year later, how many homes have new moisture problems they never had before, contamination problems they never had before. I mean, there's people down there just happy to, if an Amish guy builds them a shed to sleep in because their home is just a hot mess and the insurance hasn't come around to fix it yet. And I'm already fast forwarding the story with you. I'm like, are they going to pay for that service? No, maybe they'll pay for the new roof, but then, okay, well,
Yeah.
what happened while that roof was damaged? Who's gonna test for this or check this, right?
Right.
Because natural disasters suck, but they're inevitable. Tornadoes in Oklahoma. Again, you've been back and forth between Tennessee and California. California, they get it all, man. You want hurricanes off the Pacific. You want landslides after a wildfire, earthquakes. Big state, they get it all. Unfortunately. So, how long did it take you? Because I want to make sure I get this out before the end of the show. How long did it take you to purge and clean your head, your body? Hit that. I don't know if it's called a zero state of balance, whatever you want to call it. How long did it take you to kind of heal and recover?
Yeah, good question. Well, my symptoms weren't as, severe as some of the other people that were in the house.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was I would say I started kind of working on it 2 years after I moved out of the house.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
after you moved out.
yeah, after I moved
Okay.
out, when I was kind of, it was in that retrospect
Because you had
where
residual issues still, right?
yeah, it doesn't go away, right? It's not like catching a cold. It's toxicity, so it builds up in the body. And then you develop habits and ways of coping with those chronic conditions that then become their own conditions. So it takes some time a lot of times for people to see their life and their health in that way. So it took some time for me. I worked with a doctor in Los Angeles who does what's called direct spectrum frequency treatment and
Mm,
electrodermal screening. It's a very complicated name, but it's essentially a quantum medicine treatment. And that got me,
I'm
uh,
already
I,
intrigued. I love
yeah,
fancy
it's
new
it's
things.
very, very,
What?
very interesting. But that got me to a good place, and has since I've seen it get a lot of people who were in much, much worse off than me
Mm,
to a great place. But it's very hard to get to that baseline again. And most people, I would say most people are on that journey because 80% or so of healing is the detoxification process, which involves getting out of the toxic environment, and it also involves getting the toxins out of the body.
yes.
So once you get to that point, you still have a cellular health issue, and a morphogenetic DNA epigenetic issue that
Mhm.
from that toxicity. And that is what keeps people, still 15, sometimes 20%. Re-exposure is really tough on them. So it can be a years long process of your body getting back, to the state that it was, which just is the reason why it's so important to maintain the health of your environment because nothing is more important to your long-term health.
That was a scary. It was a great. I'm glad we just hit on this because I just had the flashback back to Brandon's episode, and you're hitting on what he hit on. He had a woman that she was living overseas in the military, and she got exposed to the trash pile burnings that they would do in
Hmm.
Iraq and stuff. That's now we have evidence of how much toxicity because you're burning tires and plastic and trash and basically they literally these burn pits they just didn't care, they just burned it all.
Yeah.
And she was in a base right there, so it's all airborne and coming in. So she developed some condition issues from that, and then went through some work over in Europe when they moved her to Germany and thought everything was fine. She still had her house back here in the States. Well, she came home, did not know, massive mold epidemic inside the HVAC system. She wasn't changing the air filters and never had the ductwork done. So she thought that most of her symptoms had subsided. And then she's home not even less than a month and didn't just reflare it up, it amplified where her original exposures were overseas to another level
Mm.
because like you said, she wasn't fully healed yet. There was still a baseline of buildup in her system at the cellular level. Well, then she goes and moves home, thinks she's okay again or almost healed, and then just boom, explosion of issues because
Mm.
her did not realize her home had gotten worse. Um, Proof that there is, I guess you kind of hinted at it earlier. You might have taken this much time, but not everybody's got a different cellular buildup, different amount of exposure, different lifestyle, maybe different health and fitness baseline. Also, maybe you're more
Different genetic.
resilient, right? Genetics, yeah. So that was a crazy thing when he brought that. I'm like, that totally makes sense. So like, oh, okay, maybe it's not fully out yet. Then you think, oh, I'm gonna move to a different property. Ergo, your old home, and you think, oh, okay, I'm out of that world. I'll be okay. And within the first month, you're worse than you've ever been because your own home had issues that you didn't even know about. So that's scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who actually develop PTSD
Yeah.
from when they have to move or when something, because I mean, I know people who, even to do something as simple as go to the airport and take a flight,
Mm-hmm.
could mean, 2 weeks of sickness for them because just spending time in an airport, that we all go to, right, that has mold in it can
Right.
set their health back so far. So living in that kind of paranoia every time you walk into a building and not knowing, how you're going to walk out of it is very difficult for people.
Well, and to be fair, you're hitting right. PTSD is not too severe of a thing to say because years ago when I went back to school, I added a second major in for psychology, and I'm just a geek about stuff like that. And I'm glad I did because some of the most stressful and maybe not full PTSD until you add in your layer you just added, but some of the most stressful things you do in your life, right? Marriage, divorce, obviously death is very tragic. but career changes and moving of home. So you add in the stress naturally of having to pick up your life and move. But then you add in another layer of stress of, oh, by the way, and you're being exposed to brain altering negative attributes like mycotoxins. Like that, yeah. I don't see a problem hitting full PTSD level at that point. That's stress upon now years of residual impact until you can find a way to heal and detoxify from that.
Exactly. And those toxins are attacking your nervous system at the same time.
Oh,
So
darn. Yeah, that too.
yeah, from every angle you're getting it.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty tragic, man. So how long has the company been fully in motion now?
Yeah, about 4 years.
Okay. And great growth? I gotta
Yeah,
talk. I got a little business at the end here. I gotta run a
totally.
little bit.
I
Yeah.
love it. No,
Health,
we
health, health always trumps everything else because I truly believe that if you put health first, everything else falls in line, right? Your business will be more successful. You will help more people. Your lifestyle eventually benefits. That's why I always put health first. But are you saying you guys probably target more of the commercial side then, trying to get more and more contractors to help people?
No, we're right now primarily focused on the consumer.
Oh,
Our
interesting.
system we built into a DIY cleaning process. So
Okay,
it's something that people can do after mold remediation. We have a section on our website where you can create a custom quote for your own home. So enter in all your home details, your rooms, and it tells you all the products you need. So you can follow our whole home system protocol to detoxify the home.
yeah.
So we do have some professional customers but that's really where we're
I
focused.
did
And
see a pro tab. So I
yeah,
figured that's
yep,
why I asked. Yeah, tools
yep,
for the
we do.
professional as well. Which actually, if I was a consumer and I see you're also trying to teach, educate, and sell to the pros, that would make me feel a little bit better. That it's not just some kind of consumer driven push. It's like no.
Definitely.
This is what the
Well,
pros use.
we spent 3 years in the mold remediation industry working with many people in the industry, including some consultants and some laboratories, to do our own research, to really prove it to the professionals first that our technology works and it solves that problem. Then we
Mm,
adapted that for the consumer so that we could put it right in the hands of people who need it the most at an affordable price point. So we still work with our professionals, and that's continuing to grow. But there's a lot of education, that we're aimed to do, and we're really, from a business perspective, introducing a new category of cleaning. So we are launching a professional cleaning company, a professional service cleaning company this year. So
cool.
we'll be performing these types of cleanings around the country. We're in a kind of a beta phase of that, but this is a new category of
What are you
cleaning.
thinking? Possible franchise model, or eh, I just it's not my first rodeo. I figured I had to go that route
Yep. You
because it
know where
makes
the bull
sense.
run.
Especially, all you got to do is target market that to the existing duct cleaning companies. They're already doing exactly what you're doing, but now you're giving them an additional service to piggyback into that. So they either buy into the licensing rights to it, right, to be able to be a part of your platform and or franchise, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me to target the professionals already doing it. So
Exactly, because it's a new service. It adds revenue to their business model.
exactly, smart move, well done. So I
Thank
mean, if my word carries any value.
you.
Well, listen, Seth, that's why I said I knew we'd have some fun today because I know, unfortunately, I know this subject probably better than most. But again, luckily, I've not had full exposure to mycotoxins. I have, thanks to just my professional background, met enough people and experts to accidentally fall into understanding this better. To hopefully prevent me ever getting that, or protecting my wife and protecting my extended family. So, but there's so many of us out there that have never even heard probably what we talked about today. There's so many people. I've used BRI. People are like, what the hell is a BRI? It's like building related illness. It's been around for a while now. It's more of a problem. They're like, oh, oh, I'll have to look into that. I want to take a little more serious than that.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, I've had a lot of fun today. I hope you did too. Um,
Good.
I do have to get ready for another show. So I always honor my guest co-hosts. I want them to close the show out for the audience, right? I'm not going anywhere, but you're the ones maybe come and go. And I want to make sure people understand that I used to have you guys do like final words, but then especially what you're doing and your personal story behind this, I kind of shifted it and I said, well, let's think about this as a legacy, right? Let's think about what is a lasting footprint we're leaving behind on this planet. I'm always trying to find a positive spin. There's too much negative juju in the world. So, how would you like to close this out? Is there something you've developed from your own personal experience to obviously working on this new company, Superstratum, from Hygia? So it's like, well, is there anything that you've kind of summed up into a legacy message, especially somebody like you with a musical background too? I'm just very intrigued. So,
Yeah, no, I love that question. And yes, our superstratum is solving the mold mycotoxin problem. But Hygia Living is really about that legacy mission, right? How do we live in our environments in the right way so that it creates the reality of our health, the reality of our environment? We're all chronically ill and we're all out of whack with that. And there's so many things that go into that. And it's not just here's your pill, swallow it with water. It's no, you have to take personal accountability and responsibility, and you have to move into action, and you have to be committed, and you have to be devoted. And healing is not complicated, but it's not easy. And that applies to healing the environment as well. So I always like to just encourage people that people know when they start hearing these messages, it's like these alarm bells are going off because they know the problem and they don't want to face it. So that's the first thing is just to encourage people to do that. And then on a more practical basis, what I like to tell people, a lot of times people hear this and they get confused and say, well, where do I even start? How do I know? What do I do? And the first thing, rather than even it's like we talked about some of the testing, what I'd like to tell people is it's really simple. When you travel and you go on vacation or you leave your home for 2 to 3 days, does your energy come back? Does your brain fog go away? Does your skin clear up? Do your gut issues get a little bit better, right? Does your autoimmune disease, not flare up as much, right? Then when you go home again, do those things return?
mm,
That means almost certainly that there's something in the building that is contributing to that disease. Now, what it is from that point, you can begin the journey. And sometimes it doesn't matter because the steps to fix that environment are the same. But that is the easiest thing that I like to tell people to just get that aha moment and go, wait a minute, why have I been on this health journey for 6 years? Why can none of my doctors seem to get me better? Why do I keep taking the same medications and I'm not getting better? Sometimes that's all it takes, and that will start, the train for people to then move into action and heal their environment. And that is the first step to getting your health back, is being in that healthy environment.
well said, sir. That's why I said I knew you'd have a great way to close it out. Well, listen, hang tight. I'm going to give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, again, Seth, I told you he was going to have a good show for you guys today. And again, I've aired past content on this before. Please take your air quality seriously. Please take the safety of your whole home. You can't control the airports. He said that earlier. You can't control always the businesses that you're working in. I travel a lot. I'm in and out of wilderness resorts. I mean, whatever. I have no idea what the air quality is in those places. So at least when I come home, when I'm spending most of my life, I take this as a high priority. But the one of the more important takeaways I loved that he said was Seth said something that I've said many times in this show, being personally accountable. So that's how I want to close out, is based on Seth's own words himself. If we all could step up for ourselves, our family, and each other, and I've used this quote before, if we could be personally accountable while also being collectively accountable, we can truly change the world. If nothing else, at least your own home. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, go check out superstratum.co. Thank you, Seth, for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, we're here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. Seth helped us do that today. So, thanks for tuning in. And remember, you too could live the fuel. We'll talk to you guys again soon.